All right.
All right, let's go. Well, Zach, I appreciate your asking me to tell some stories about our experience. And one of the outstanding experiences of our life was the birth of your mother. Because we were in Netanya, Israel. We were in language school.
Mm-hmm.
But it was in the summertime when the school was out, and I was at the Baptist village about 40 minutes away working, and Eddie and Tammy and Todd
Mm-hmm.
were at home. And so I got a call from them, from my neighbor, saying Eddie was in trouble, come home immediately. So I jumped in the car and ran home and found my neighbor lady and a doctor who was an abortionist there at the house. And he was getting ready to do an abortion, which as soon as I saw him there, and he told me what he was going to do, and told me there's no way that she could carry the baby. I dismissed him. I just said, thank you for your service, but we don't need you.
Okay.
I loaded Eddie in the car and the children, and we went to two different hospitals that turned us down. They wouldn't even let us in the hospital. So we finally went to the General Hospital, an old British Army base, turned into a hospital. And there they accepted us. And so Eddie was in bed there for 2 weeks at least. And there was a young doctor from America who was specializing in this kind of problem. And so he took Eddie under his wing, but he didn't give her any hope of carrying the baby full term. The idea was, he presented a bad picture that, we'll try to save it, but problem is there will be damage to the fetus because of all this. Well,
What was wrong at the time?
Well, Eddie had, the only thing we know, she had given herself an enema, thinking she had constipation, but it was the pushing of the baby, the fetus that was going on. We don't know. It was a premature. It was an abortion, about to be an abortion, natural abortion.
Mm.
So we got in the hospital, got this doctor, and Eddie was flat on her back for the 2 weeks there. And she, was able then to come home but not do anything, not pick up, not to work or not to do anything. And so we just prayed that this fetus would mature and mature healthily. And we prayed very much during that time for the baby. And then when it got closer to time in early December, she was born 19th of December, when early December, we talked to the doctor, and they wouldn't even give us a place in the hospital. They said she won't be born. And so we went to Nazareth, to the Christian Medical Mission, Edinburgh Medical Mission Hospital, and we knew a doctor there, Dr. Mackay, and she said, "Yes, come on, we're going to do all we can." So we camped out in Nazareth for 3 weeks, probably a month or 3 weeks, just waiting for the birth. And so one night, pretty late, Eddie decided she needed to go to the hospital. So we got her up to the hospital and got her in. And Dr. Mackay was there, and I heard the gosh awfulest guttural scream I've ever heard coming. They wouldn't let me in. So it was Eddie, and she gave birth to Valerie. And we hadn't planned a name for her at this time, but because she held on, because she did her part in holding on, and we did our part, and Lord did it. We called her Valerie, for valor. And Carol, because she came just before Christmas. So Valerie Carol. And that was her name. But something happened that morning. It was early morning, maybe 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, when we went into the hospital earlier, a couple hours earlier. There was a full moon. Full moon. It was bright as day almost. And when I stepped out of the hospital after she gave birth and I saw that Eddie was okay and the baby was okay, then I went back to where we were staying with the other children. And when I stepped out of the hospital, I thought, something weird, something's going on, something weird. And I looked up and there was a total eclipse of the moon. So it was totally dark. It's totally different than when we went in. So, it just kind of put the stamp on Valerie Carroll that she was something special. And that just as Eddie did her part and stayed down, and we just prayed her through, and the Lord brought her through, and it's just a miracle, the whole thing. So we're thankful to the Lord for Valerie, and she's lived up to Valerie Carroll, very much so. So that's a little story of your mom.
All right.
It's birth. You hadn't heard all of that?
I hadn't heard all of it, no.
Oh. Well, good.
Yeah.
There's something new for you.
There we go. Good start.
Yeah, a good start. Well, something else you want to say?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, do you remember how all of the women that were in there
Oh, yeah.
had come to have, would you say, an abortion? You actually go
No.
to the hospital?
That's where you were in Tel Aviv Hospital at first. There, at the Tel Aviv Hospital, there was a nurse that took care of Eddie. And she told Eddie, I can't remember, something like 15 or 16 abortions that she had. And we realized then that was just a common birth control method, abortion was, in Israel. And so she didn't know why Eddie wanted to keep the baby, It was just go ahead and abort it.
Well, I think that at that particular time, I don't remember having a friend that ever did something like that, or even hearing much about it.
No, we knew about it, but just didn't hear. No, wasn't much said about abortions that time. But anyway.
And I do remember kind of scurrying around after that, even while I was holding myself like this, and just talking to the women who were waiting, to have their children or to have the abortion, and just saying, you will know that God loves your baby.
another Valerie story was that she was born in December '64, and in June '67 was the 6-day war that we went through. So she was two and a half. Yeah, 2.5 years old. Well, we all went running under. We had built a shelter under the building that we lived in there at the Baptist Village, and we'd all go running to that shelter and get in. Well, we ran through a hallway at the foot of our stairs, and the entrance to the dugout place we had was very close there. And so Valerie would be, I think you took care of Valerie, I believe, and the two other children. I looked after the boys at the school. And so she would have to go through this hallway to get, well, she just got scared of going through that hallway. And in the meantime, this week of war, she carried, and we all the kids carried a little sack of food and water and just a little sack of stuff to survive on for a while. And she carried that sack everywhere she went, I remember. And then a year later in '68, we came back to America, stopped in New York, and went, the kids, she and the children, the other two, went with an old friend of Eddie's in New York, while we went down into New Jersey to see some friends. And she was still carrying the bag, still carrying that bag. And they said, what's wrong with this little girl? And she won't let us take this bag from her. She's always carrying this little bag. Bless her. So that was a year after the war. But it made such an impression on her that she just wanted to hold on to it all the time.
Who grabbed her up and carried her down? Because I was still, trying to get so back to me. I was still trying to convince it that.
One of the kids, probably. Okay, why don't you stop it then?